Good afternoon, everyone. It is Saturday, January 17th, 2026. Of course, I'm your meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino. We have more data on the snow threat for tomorrow, and with some significant updates, I want to explain what's behind this and also give you some updates on what to expect for the coverage for tomorrow. So, first of all, our current storm is exiting the region with a few snow showers still lingering around Connecticut. For the most part, storm that pretty much verified in most locations, a little bit above forecast in northeastern Pennsylvania and parts of northwestern New Jersey in the highest elevations, but overall, a pretty good forecast. So we have the stage set with cold air coming in. Now we're watching this feature down here get ready to jump and redevelop off of the mid-Atlantic coast, or off the Carolina coast, in fact. And let's just refresh this, and probably should have done this beforehand, but we'll take off the infrared. And you can see there's pretty good amount of moisture here starting to build down towards the southeast. We have another wave of low pressure out here. And this is all going to combine to set up a nice storm out here over the Carolina coastal waters late tonight into early tomorrow morning. Now, the overall theme for this storm remains the same that we've been talking about for days now, whereas the short waves that are diving in don't really merge fast enough. And so, as a result, the bulk of this storm remains out in the Atlantic. So, what has changed? Well, as the storm intensifies and it's going to really bomb out over the coastal waters, it's going to enhance what we call stretching in the atmosphere. And the way that we're seeing that here is with our upper level winds, especially for tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon. You see this little feature here. This is very strong divergence and diffluence. Now, the best lifting is out here, but this jet streak here is just enough to create some stretching. And we start to see that with the NAM model guidance, really starting to pick that mesoscale process up, and now all the other models are starting to catch on. So in terms of the 500 millibar setup here, no change. This short wave does not merge or phase in time to pull the storm further west, but this feature out here, as it's coming in, it will become more enhanced because of the stretching in the atmosphere, and that's showing up now on the European out here like this. And this is 700 millibar frontogenesis. So you get this focus of strong lifting right on the coastal plain and along the I-95 corridor. And you also see this here on the NAM model guidance. Now, this type of feature can be very, very difficult to forecast. And it can lead to some models really overdoing the snowfall and other models really underdoing the snowfall, because this is all about rising and sinking motion in a mesoscale process, small scale process. So you really have to be careful on how you present this in a forecast, because you could easily jump a little bit too high. So you kind of want to stay away from the highs and stay away from the extreme lows and try to find that middle ground in the forecast. Now, one thing that really stood out to me was when I looked at the skew T. This is from the NAM model guidance as the storm's developing. And what stood out is this little signal right here. Pretty good sign for instability, then stability. Instability, stability. This is stable, neutral, instability. Again, neutral, and then stable. So, what does this mean when I see this? This is a sign that we could see some convective snow out of this and some pretty significant heavy bursts. And so now we have the convective aspect of it because we're stretching the atmosphere as this low pressure system is departing and cold air is building in. Now at the surface, pretty much holding at around freezing for most locations, and then we gradually fall into the 20s as the storm begins to end. So again, this is an environment where snow accumulation won't be too much of an issue. The question is how much cold air invades at 850 millibars. And so when we look at this at 12Z, you can see this signal right here. Whenever we have this signal show up between -6 and -8 degrees Celsius at 850 millibars, that's typically where you can start to set up your bands of moderate to heavy snowfall. And they generally, through the day, focus around the I-95 corridor. It's a pretty good rule, and in storms similar to this type of setup, where you're right on the western edge of the precipitation shield and you have a rapid drop off to your west and your heaviest precipitation off the coast, when you have this signal here, that's usually a good goalpost of where to look for the best potential for accumulating snowfall. So based on all those factors, what we're expecting here is for precipitation to begin tomorrow at around 6 a.m. and really get going as we go on through the day. So here's our first storm that leaves. Now here comes our second storm here for Sunday morning. And this is starting at around 6 a.m. We start to see this really take shape with some rain right down here around southern New Jersey, very briefly mixing in. But by 10 a.m., everyone's over to snow. And as we go on through the day, we'll get these moderate bursts. But again, notice all your heavy precipitation is out here. This right here is at the surface, that signal of that stretching with that little negatively tilted trough here that shows up. So you can see the surface reflection of the stretching in the atmosphere. So that is essentially what we're seeing here, and that's why the precipitation shield was able to expand as far west as it did. But also notice out here, very light signal, so more like flurries out here in east central Pennsylvania. And as you get closer towards the Delaware River Valley, you get more of a moderate burst here and there. But again, notice your heaviest snowfall remains out here. Heaviest precipitation remains out over the Atlantic. So this is what I'm expecting. For Zone 1, which covers much of the I-95 corridor and basically in that zone between -6 and -8, I'm looking at 2 to 5 inches of snow. Most locations are going to be around that 2-3 inch mark with very light snow. But there are going to be some bursts here and there as we go on through the day. That's going to push some locations up to that 3 to 5 inch range. Then in Zone 2, pretty much the same setup, except we're going to have a little bit of rain to mix in at the very start. So that's going to knock down your snowfall totals a bit, but still expecting about 1 to 3 inches of snow. Zone 3, this is simply where we're getting away from the best lifting and dynamics. So we're looking at about 1 to 3 inches of snow there. And Zone 4, this is where you're on the outer edge, about a trace to 1 inch. Again, this could have been one very impressive storm where we could have been talking about snowfall in the feet rather than inches. So that tells you how impressive this storm could have been and what it will be out further. And by the way, if you're interested about football for tomorrow's football game, definitely looks like there's going to be plenty of snow for the Patriots playoff game. So that should be pretty interesting as well. We're expecting to have, I'm expecting to start live coverage tomorrow at around 8 a.m. And then continuing on as the storm progresses, we'll see how the storm takes shape. And once we get a pretty good idea that everything's locking as expected, then most likely come to an end probably around 4 to 6, somewhere around there, 4 to 6 p.m., somewhere around there. But I will be doing live coverage, so we will be streaming and taking breaks from time to time as we go on through the day. That way I can rest my voice and get some rest. So certainly a very interesting storm. We did pinpoint this time period for the best potential for winter storms, as a potential for winter storms, should I say. There's more on the way. It's just a matter of whether, again, these short waves come together properly, and then we have to look out for mesoscale factors, which should keep me on my toes. So I will see you tomorrow at 8 a.m. In the meantime, stay safe out there.